everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Open your hearts, everyone.
Good morning and welcome to Emerson Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Marietta, Georgia, and our streaming online service. I'm getting a little loud here. My name is Michael Myers, and I am the Property Management Council. I am a member of the choir whenever we can get it back. And I'm also a member of the worship team, which is why I'm standing here before you today. I'd like to send a special welcome to those who are new at Emerson. We hope you find our service to be nourishing in mind and body and enjoy our service today. I'd also like to send a very special welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Gwinnett, Georgia, who are joining us this morning. I hope you enjoy how we kind of bumble around and do our service today. It's a little different. If you'd like to see our order of service, it can actually be found at the emersonuu.org website. I repeat, the order of service is at the emersonuu.org website. I'd like to begin this morning with a few words from the song On the Other Side by Kansas. Desperation shows its ugly face in many ways. No one can escape the times we live in. The answers are so simple, and we all know where to look, but it's easier just to avoid the question. And if I seem too inconclusive, it's just because it's so elusive. And if I've never said it before, I'll say it once again. Everyone needs something to believe in. At Emerson, you're welcome to find your own belief. But that does mean you can't avoid the question, and you must make a choice and defend it. Following our service today, you are invited to attend our second hour activities at 11:15. You will find them at the bottom of the order of service at, again, emersonuu.org. In the spirit of beloved community, welcome to Emerson. Our chalice lighting words today are a quote from Jerry Smith. Playing with fire is bad for those who burn themselves. For the rest of us, it is a very great pleasure. As our service begins, please take a moment to greet those around you or online with our repeated congregational affirmation. We need not think alike to love alike.
Thank you, Michael, for that beautiful opening, and Bruce, and thank you all for joining us. Good morning. My name is Reverend Deborah Bennett, and it is my sheer delight, as always, to be with you this morning and to be the called minister of Emerson Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Marietta, Georgia. And a very special welcome to our friends from Gwinnett and surrounding areas. It's a joy that you are here with us this morning. Now, during last week's service, we talked about sacred words, and I posed a question about some words that this congregation had previously made part of its regular worship service. The phrase was, "We need not think alike to love alike." And I received several emails from members and friends of Emerson who expressed that they missed including those sacred words in our service. And so it was a joy to hear them again this morning. One such person who wrote me was March Price, and she shared a beautiful message with me about this phrase. And with her permission, I'd like to share with you what she wrote. She says, "This phrase has been a source of comfort to me in dealing with a painful political division in my own family. Additionally, this phrase was instrumental to my returning to Emerson following my initial visit and a factor in my decision to become a member of Emerson. It might be of interest to you that I have referenced the phrase in a recent text to my children." And she shares the text. In her text, she says, "Dear family, the pain evidenced by Claudia Conway, daughter of Kelly Ann of the Trump administration and George of the anti-Trump organization, the Lincoln Project, in her reference to seeking emancipation is so very gut-wrenching to me and is an example of why, over the years, I have urged our family not to argue about politics or religion, in spite of your and my deeply held, desperate beliefs. Although I and some of you may slip from time to time, overall I am grateful that we refrain from proselytizing, as I so very much hope that we can maintain a sense of respect, love, and family unity. In closing, I hope you find comfort, as I do, in the phrase, 'We need not think alike to love alike.'" Well, thank you, March, and thank you to all the others who have responded by sharing how important this phrase is to you. And it was a joy to reintroduce it this morning in our worship. Now, there are several things that make Unitarian Universalist congregation a Unitarian Universalist congregation. And one of them is this willingness to continually be in dialogue, to allow life to change us, and to continually return again and again to relationship. After all, we do not all have to think alike to love alike. Now, another core element to Unitarian Universalism is the commitment to act. Sometimes referred to as the religion of deeds, not creeds, Unitarian Universalism asks us, so what are we going to do about it now? And that's what we're going to explore today. We're going to explore the choice before us. And I'm going to offer these words as our opening and ask you to see if you can guess who said them. Perhaps you've heard them. We are living in the greatest revolution in history, a huge, spontaneous upheaval of the entire human race, not a revolution planned and carried out by any particular party, race, or nation, but a deep, elemental boiling over of all the inner contradictions that have ever been, a revelation of the chaotic forces inside everybody. This is not something we have chosen, nor is it something we are free to avoid. Do you know who said that? Well, it sounds like it could have been written just yesterday, but in fact, it was first published in 1966, and it was written by Thomas Merton. We continue to be in the land of deep change. So I'm going to invite you this morning to engage your own heart and your own spirit in our worship, and the first opportunity to really do that is here in our opening hymn. So please rise, let your neighbors hear what you're doing this morning. I want to thank our hymn singers this morning, Jeffrey Jacoby and Gail Passo. They are going to lift their voices, so please join them. Now, Nina Simone made this popular. Let's do her proud. Are you ready?
I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. I wish I could break all the chains holding me. I wish I could say all the things I could say. Say 'em loud, say 'em clear, for the whole world to hear. Say 'em loud, say 'em clear, for the whole world to hear. I wish I could share all the love in my heart. be free. I wish I could give all I'm longing to give. I wish I could live like I'm longing to live. I wish I could do all the things I can do. Though I'm way overdue, I'd be starting anew. Though I'm way overdue, I'd be starting anew. I wish I could be like a bird in the sky. How sweet it would be if I found I could fly. I'd soar to the sun and look down at the sea. Then I'd sing 'cause I'd know how it feels to be free. Then I'd sing 'cause I'd know what it feels to be free.
Hello, Emerson. I'm Helen Hobson, your Ministry Associate for Justice Ministries. This is an invitation to you to join our denomination's You the Vote effort here at Emerson. This is the most consequential election in the United States in living memory, as our most deeply held UU values are at stake. As our president, the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, writes, as Unitarian Universalists, this is faithful, moral action, because democracy and the right of all people to have a voice and a vote are at the heart of our 7 principles. This work is about the inherent worth and dignity of every person. It is about restoring right relationship to the planet. It is about our commitment to justice and equity for all people. Let's join together and make an impact here in Georgia in 2020 with UU the Vote.
When we're living out our values together, we have so much more power. We are all we have, and we are all we need. This election season, there are several things we can all do to affect political change. Consider taking these actions and invite others to get involved as well.
Hi, I'm Lisa Gonzalez, and I just wanted to talk to you a minute about why UU the Vote and their work is important to me. Martin Luther King said that our lives begin to end the moment that we become silent about things that matter. And although the things that we're looking at now are not new, they're really in bold relief, and this is just not a time to be silent. And one great way to make our voices heard is through the vote. And UU the Vote works hard with organizing and educating and practical issues of getting out the vote, and I think that this is a great way for us all to come together and sort of build community and relationships and do something that really matters at a time when it's really needed. So I hope that you'll think about coming and joining us. Thanks.
Hi everybody, I'm Karen. My father used to say that democracy wasn't perfect, but it was the best system that we've got. And it only works if everybody exercises their rights to vote. I've been voting since I was 18 years old, and this election coming up in November is very important. So please help us get the votes out and join UU the Vote. Thank you.
Thank you for that Emerson moment. Good morning. I'm Sandra Malik, a member of our Emerson Pastoral Care Team. We are available with a caring heart and a listening ear to support you during challenging times. Contact any one of us through pastoralcare@emersonuu.org. That email address is also in our order of service. Each Sunday, we first light our Vigil Bowl candle. It represents the light of hope for global peace and an end to racial injustice. Today, we also honor the 190,000 people who have died from COVID-19 and those medical and essential workers who courageously serve during this time. Now it's time to pause and share personal joys and sorrows of our Emerson community. As I read, Reverend Deborah will light our candles. This message from Kathy and Ed Cosper. Thank you, Emerson UUC family and friends, for all of your support while we grieve the loss of our daughter, Melissa. Your sympathy and other kind gestures have helped to fill some of the emptiness in our hearts from our profound loss. Thank you, everyone, for honoring her memory in so many lovely ways. That was Kathy and Ed Cosper. Here's a joy from Lauren Hayden Hoan. I'm overjoyed to announce the birth of our goddaughter, Ayla, born Friday, August 21st, in the early hours of the morning. Our family is so excited to welcome this sweet girl into the world after her much anticipated arrival. She's so perfect. Keep her mama and her mommy in your thoughts as they navigate motherhood. They are both doing great. Lauren is also excited to announce their move to an organic farm in Douglasville. She says, the boys and I are on the farm 4 days a week, living an interesting mixture of forest, schooling, and farming. Even when the adventure is difficult, we love it. We're all growing in our new life. It is our privilege to be surrounded by so much light and to have our roots nourished by Emerson. We know there are joys and sorrows that are too tender or personal to be mentioned here. So feel free to speak aloud the name of anyone you hold closely in your heart this morning. These joys and sorrows, spoken and unspoken, weave us together in the fabric of community. Now let us say together the Buddhist prayer of loving kindness. May all beings be filled with loving kindness. May they be free from harm or suffering. May they be well in body, heart, and mind. May they be at peace. Blessed be. And now Reverend Deb will read the story for all ages.
Well, I don't think I'm going to read you a story this morning, but I am going to tell you one. Now, I might need a little help there, Bruce. Are you ready? Okay. So this is a story about two monks. Now, they could have been monks like you and I, for those of us that maybe have a belief in.
Okay.
There we go. All right, everybody. I'm going to start way over. Are we good? Yes. We're good. All right. So you saw. Here we go. I think I'm good. I think I'm good. 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 Oh, we love live TV. Okay, Bruce. So what we were talking about is this great story we're going to tell. We're going to tell a story about Bruce and I many lifetimes ago. So we were these monks, right, Bruce?
Yes.
Yeah. We were these monks, and at the time I was like this old senior monk, and Bruce.
I'm a young, vibrant monk.
And we were walking, right? Walking.
Yeah.
Let's get that walking music back. So we're walking. Now, one thing you have to know about monks is they have a lot of rules, these Zen monks. And one of the rules that we had was don't touch other people, and specifically women.
Oh.
Okay? We're not going to go
I have
there.
no trouble
We're not
with
going to
that.
talk about what's wrong with that. But let's just go with that. So here we go. We're walking along one day, and we come upon a river. It was, pretty wet out there. Can we get some river music?
River, I got to talk and play.
Yeah, river music. There we go, river music. So there's the river. But as we approach the river, oh, by the way, we're walking in silence.
Oh.
I mean, the river can be noisy, but we're walking in silence because that's what we do, because we were contemplating. We're walking in silence, and as we approach the river, there before us is a person, an older person who needed to cross the river but could not. And so as we walk upon the younger monk, picks up this person, and they continue to walk across the river. Now, the older senior monk is thinking, OMG, this guy is getting kicked out of the monastery. He broke the rules. You broke the rules, Bruce.
I tend to do that.
Yeah. So they walk, and the whole time they're walking, the senior monk is thinking, oh man, this guy's in such big trouble. I'm going to tell the guy in charge, I'm going to tell everybody, this guy is so, just out of here. And the young monk is just walking along. Finally, they get to the monastery, and you could see the older monk was so angry. The sweat was coming down his face, and he was just like having one of those faces. And he finally turned to the younger monk, and he was like, how could you do that? You just came out of training. We spent days and days and days training you. You knew the rules. How could you do that? And the wise, you were very wise.
I would agree with you.
Do you know what you said? Do you remember?
I don't. Please
You don't. Let me remind
me.
you. Let me remind you what you said. You said, I did pick her up, but I put her down on the other side of the river. You have been carrying her this whole way.
Ha ha ha.
Aha. So, rules sometimes are rules, but sometimes we have to stand up for what we know is right. And I think, Bruce, in that moment, you knew the right thing to do was to help that person across the river. You taught me a deep lesson, and I bow to you.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right. All right, children, I hope you enjoyed that. Young and old, please gather around. We're going to do our song of dedication. Let's all hold virtual hands. Bruce, you have to play the piano with your virtual hands.
Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind and fellowship. Thus do we covenant with each other. Thus do we promise to each other.
I love that. So I'm going to invite you now into a moment of pause. So even if the idea of meditation is not your cup of tea, I'm going to invite you to allow this moment of pause to be a gift. We get so very few of those in our days. So if you would like for your moment of pause to close your eyes, or at least have soft eyes so that you're looking down. And let the breath help bring you inward to your pause, coming in from the busyness of your day. Allow yourself to pause for a moment from the mind's need to figure it all out. Allow the body to pause for a moment from its to-do list. With a deep breath, allow this pause to bring you round about into yourself. Let this pause be a moment for gathering in your own heart, reconnecting there, now, with that which is most truly you. Just pause. Just for a moment, give yourself the gift of pause. Noticing how the pause inside you can start to build your strength back. Let the pause be not the place to stop, but the place to gather. Let the pause be your prayer for what is to come. Let the pause be the space before the action where you gather unto yourself, knowing what is yours to do next. Trust the power of your heart to awaken you in this pause. Trust the power of your love to move you forward from the moments of pause. And as you're ready, you can open your eyes. Let's take in this beautiful music by Dr. Glenn Thomas, Ride Out.
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned. Circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for its soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned. Circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole.
Thank you. Thank you to Dr. Glenn Thomas Rideout for granting permission for that beautiful piece to be played in Unitarian Universalist services across the country. It was really beautiful. So on June 9th, which was the date of George Floyd's burial, Emersonians were invited to join together outside our building, alongside busy Canton Road, in solidarity for justice, and to have what we called a kneel-in, a time to kneel in honor of George Floyd and all the others who have been killed by racist violence. Over 60 people of all ages showed up that day. We made signs with words like, say their names, no justice, no peace, I can't breathe, and Black Lives Matter. As people began to gather, make their signs, and venture toward the road, I can honestly share with you that I wept. I was so grateful to be part of this group of people. I was proud of this congregation, a congregation that only years prior had struggled in its decision about raising a Black Lives Matter banner. A congregation who at this point had not totally organized itself around effectively addressing racism, white privilege, and white supremacy. Now, I know as I speak these words, there are still those who struggle with their use, and I understand that. These are words that have a lot of unpacking to do. As we assembled along the road that day, we prepared for the kneel-in. We had decided to kneel as a sign of respect and honor, and we would kneel for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, the amount of time that a police officer had their knee on George Floyd's neck while he gasped for air and called out for his mother. 8 minutes is a mighty long time when you are kneeling. Now, it happened that I was at the front of the long line of people who were kneeling that day, facing the speeding, oncoming traffic as people in cars and trucks made their way hurriedly to and from work and home. I chose to close my eyes in prayer as I knelt. It didn't take long for an unsettling feeling of vulnerability to begin to arise. It was a vulnerability that would grow minute by minute. I was kneeling with my head bowed and eyes closed as the cars speeding past me made my heart begin to race. And my mind began to race with it. It would only take a momentary choice on the part of one of those drivers to swerve toward us and radically change many, many lives. On August 12th, 3 years prior, a 20-year-old man made a choice to drive his car into a crowd of people who had been peacefully protesting the Unite the Right in Charlottesville, Virginia. His choice that day killed Heather Hoyu and injured 19 others. Remembering that scene and feeling the speed of the cars go by on Canton Road, I realized how incredibly vulnerable I was. We all were. While part of me wanted to move to a safer position, something else inside me that day clearly directed me to stay. And I heard a voice very clearly, and it said, "Stay. Stay and feel this. Feel this vulnerability." For that vulnerability is only a fraction of what so many black and brown people feel every day just trying to live their lives in this country. Ahmaud Arbery was just going for a run. Breonna Taylor thought she was safe in her own home in the middle of the night. Rayshard Brooks was taking a nap in his car, and George Floyd was cooperating with his arrest. They knew real vulnerability, and so I chose to stay that day. And we all stayed. Minute by minute, we knelt. And when the 8 minutes and 46 seconds had passed, I stood with tears in my eyes. And I think that was my moment. Of course, there's many other moments that I felt outrage about racial justice. And I have felt the outrage of the unjustness of our social and governmental systems. But it wasn't until that moment alongside Canton Road with those cars speeding by, me kneeling with my eyes closed, that I felt a little veil of my whiteness begin to ever so slightly peel back. And I was really viscerally feeling the effects of systemic racism. At the end of the demonstration, I was able to stand up, leave, return to the safe spaces I frequented in my life. But the remembrance of that feeling on that road is with me to this day. That day had been a new beginning for Emerson as well. A racial justice team has been formed, and our demonstrations continue every Tuesday night from 5 to 6:30 alongside Canton Road. I encourage you to join us. Each week, people choose to gather. And we gather for many reasons: to try to be part of the solution, not the problem, to proclaim our values, and because we know racism exists in our country and we cannot be silent any longer. And while I resonate with all those reasons, I've also have found another reason why I show up on Tuesday nights. My heart had been deeply impacted alongside that road, and as I stood out there week after week, I began to wonder about the effects our presence was having on those that drove by. I knew the effects of those of us standing there. We were sharing about that. But what were the effects of the people in the cars? And so I began to watch. I watched each driver with deep curiosity as they passed, and I realized that they each had this moment that they faced. As they came down the road and they recognized what was going on, they each had this moment of choice. How would they respond? Now, to be sure, few, if any, of those drivers anticipated driving past a racial justice demonstration on that day, although probably by now many regulars know that we're there. But whether on the first or the 10th time, each driver on Canton Road encountered this choice, And watching their responses was fascinating. Of course, we love the honkers, yay for the honkers, and there are all kinds of honkers. There's the ones that do the beep, 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 beep of approval, smiling as they go by. And then there's the ones that lay on the horn all the way down the demonstration line. It feels good when they go by. All they need to do is comprehend what is written on our signs, and they waste no time. They instantly know what they're going to choose to do, and they go for their horn. I've even seen a passenger who was in the passenger side who couldn't get to the horn because it was the driver's, and she was so excited she was jumping up and down in her seat and clapping. So far, she wins the award for most enthusiastic. Then we have the wavers and the thumb uppers. Perhaps they were taught to only use their horns for traffic safety, but these folks, they seemed to pause just a little bit as they approached. They had just a little hesitancy on how to respond. But then when they got in front of us, and maybe in response to our waves at them, they would show their sign of solidarity and give us a thumbs up or wave. The fist uppers, they hesitated not at all. They knew what to communicate. Fists up. And then there are the ones who hold up a particular finger, not a fist or a thumb. They often do not pause either and seem to have great enjoyment in squeezing their faces in disapproval. My mama always said not to do that because my face would stay that way. I'm just saying. We can always count on a few muscle cars who somehow think that revving their engines and speeding quickly by will communicate both their disapproval and somehow, perhaps even more importantly for them, get them as far away as possible, as quickly as possible from the acknowledgement of racism. I wave to them too, knowing that racism follows. But I have to say the two groups I find most fascinating each Tuesday night are what I call the smile nodders and the don't lookers. Now, as the smile nodders approach us, they begin to comprehend the words on a sign, and truly they are the ones that seem to panic. It's like their minds are racing. What to do? What to do? Do I honk? No, I can't honk. Oh, but I want them to know I'm a good person. What if my neighbor sees me supporting them? Oh, I wish they weren't out there. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. Are they waving at me? Oh, no, they're waving at me. What should I do? I'll wave and smile and nod. They mean well. They're just a little indecisive. But there is one category that disturbs me the most. Hello? Do you see that something's going on the side of the road? Hello? There's people over here. The don't lookers. It's this paralyzing stare forward that is perhaps the most disturbing and dangerous of them all. It's the I see nothing, everything is fine, just keep driving, this too shall pass, note to self, don't go this way on a Tuesday night. And unfortunately, there are quite a few of these folks. But truthfully, we have all been there ourselves, perhaps not on Canton Road on a Tuesday night driving by a racial justice demonstration, but we have all found ourselves in that moment of indecision, when instead of acting, we have stared straight ahead and pretended not to notice. In this moment when there is so much going on in our society and many people feel just getting through the day is action enough, many of us have been don't lookers, hoping that if we delay a choice, we won't have to make one when it comes to how to engage with racial justice. But not looking is still a choice. Now, as someone who turns to Eastern scriptures for inspiration, I couldn't speak today about a topic about choosing action without mentioning the great Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Because the scripture is fascinating. Scriptures in general fascinate me, these old scriptures, because I love when I can look at them and find in them the human condition repeating again and again. No matter how old they are, we seem to continually face many of the same conditions. Well, written over 2,000 years ago, the Gita addresses the quandary that we continue to face today: how to be in this world that calls us to act when those actions can be really difficult. Now, it's interesting to note, you may or may not know, that our namesake here at Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, was a great fan of the scripture. And of the very few things that Thoreau took with him to Walden Pond, the Gita was one of them. Both men felt very much like Gandhi did, that it contained some real pearls of wisdom. The Bhagavad Gita is part of a bigger story called the Mahabharata, and it recounts a lengthy struggle of war and war between two sides of a family. The Gita itself represents just a part of the story, and it is a dialogue in the moments leading up to the war. And it's between a warrior named Arjuna and his charioteer, who is Krishna. Now, it turns out Krishna is actually an incarnation of Vishnu, one of the Hindu gods. Now, as Krishna drives Arjuna's chariot, he drives it right to the middle of the battlefield. And Arjuna looks around and he realizes he cannot bear to go into battle. He can't bear to kill his kinsman. So he lowers his weapons and he begins to weep. And thus begins the dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna. Now, if you're like me, when I first encountered the text of the Gita, I thought, hey, good for you, Arjuna. Put down your weapons, don't fight. And it perplexed me when I found out that Gandhi, the father of the nonviolent movement for change, who was inspiration to MLK and so many others, that he could promote and like this idea, this story of violence. But a deeper reading of the Gita reveals its true message is not one about violence, and this is why Gandhi embraced it so. Gandhi asserted that the Gita was a sacred spiritual work, which under the guise of physical warfare describes really the inner duel that permeates the heart of us all. And I thought when I read that, that is so true. Without going far into the scripture study, although I'm happy to do that someday, I'll summarize the story by saying that the allegorical Gita encourages us to first master the skill of action, and second, to remain balanced, whether in success or failure. In other words, to renounce the fruits of the action. This renunciation is not because we should not act for a specific cause, but because the struggle to seek a specific end or reward causes us to not trust our hearts and creates apprehension and fear. In Gandhi's words, renunciation means absence of hankering after fruit, because attachment, worry, haste affect our nervous system and upset the balance of our mind, making it harder for us to actually act. We're trying to control the situation. The Dalai Lama speaks to this beautifully in response to a question that he had once from a Buddhist teacher. He was teaching his teachers, and the teacher asked him, what was the most important thing I can take back to my students? And the Dalai Lama replies this. He says, tell them to trust the power of heart and awareness to awaken through all circumstances. Trust the power of heart and awareness to awaken through all circumstances. Gandhi came to realize that ahimsa, which is nonviolence, and satyagraha, which literally means truth force but is interpreted to mean nonviolent resistance, that they were the keys to the teachings of renunciation taught by the Gita. Gandhi began to translate the Gita into his own life through non-violent but decisive, heart-directed action. And that is what inspired Martin Luther King Jr. and so many others. Perhaps most profoundly, however, is that after a whole bunch of teaching through the Gita, and it's not a long read, but after all this teaching from Krishna, the Gita pretty much wraps up with Krishna saying to Arjuna, ultimately, Arjuna, it is your choice. You alone can choose what you will do next. And that's our choice. All the news we can listen to, all the books we can read, it still comes down to a choice. We must choose. What will we do? Days before his death on July 17th, the great civil rights leader John Lewis penned a letter to America. It was published in the New York Times, and if you haven't read it, I encourage you to do so. In it, he wanted to let the world know that he was filled with hope, and he called us into action. I want to read just a little bit of what he wrote. He says, "Emmett Till was my George Floyd. He was my Rayshard Brooks, Sandra Bland, and Breonna Taylor. He was 14 when he was killed, and I was only 15 years old at the time. I will never, ever forget that moment when it became so clear to me that he could easily have been me." Lewis goes on to talk about hearing Martin Luther King Jr. speak about the philosophy and discipline of nonviolence, and he recounts King saying, "We are all complicit when we tolerate injustice, and that it is not enough to say it will all get better by and by. It's not enough to be a don't-looker." I added that part. He continues, "Each of us has a moral obligation to stand up, and to speak out. We are at a moment of great choice before us. We are Arjuna, sometimes hesitant to enter into battle. But King and Gandhi and Lewis and so many others, they're our Krishna. They stand with us and encourage us to make a choice. I think they would all encourage us now not to be wave and nodders, not to be don't-lookers." John Lewis ends his letter with these words. He says, "I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand up for what you truly believe. In my life, I have done all I can to demonstrate that the way of peace and the way of love and nonviolence is the more excellent way. Now is your turn to let freedom ring." So I ask you, what is your call to action moment? When was, or are you still waiting for, that experience that calls you forward? Will you be standing on the outskirts of the battlefield and refuse to go forward, fearful of the results of your actions? Will you drive by looking forward until it passes? Will you wave or nod and let the world know you're a good person but do little else? Or will you act and honk that horn all the way down the line? The choice is yours. Blessed be. And I hope now that you choose to rise with me in spirit, and let's sing it out. Our closing hymn is "Guide My Feet," so let's make it a prayer and our call to action this morning. Please rise as you're able.
Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain, race in vain. Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain, race in vain. Stand by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain, race in vain. Search my heart while I I run this race. Search my heart while I run this race. Search my heart while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Race in vain.
As our service comes to an end, we hope that you will be leaving feeling nurtured in heart and mind by our time together. We invite you to conclude our time of worship with one final act. As you are able, please affirm your support for the continued work of this congregation and the ongoing ministries that we share through this monetary offering. When we give, we say yes to something we value. We sincerely hope that you have found great value here today and will return to worship with us and to join as a community working for a positive change in our world. Thank you for all you do to make Emerson a truly beloved community.
I close with these words from Joseph Cherry. If we have any hope of transforming the world and changing ourselves, we must be bold enough to step into our discomfort, brave enough to be clumsy there, loving enough to forgive ourselves and others. May we, as people of faith, be granted the strength to be so bold, so brave, and so loving.
As we extinguish, as my mouth goes haywire today, I said I was going to bumble around. As we extinguish the chalice, I ask that you join with me in the final response written in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we change in our hearts and out into the world until we are together again.
And take your horns wherever you go, honking them all the way down the road. Amen. Amen. Thank you.